Elara Vance watched the news ticker flash her name. Former aide fired amidst scandal. One brutal moment, one carefully crafted lie, and her decade-long career in public service was systematically erased. The rain hammered down, mirroring the shattering of her carefully built world. A week later, the calls stopped coming. Doors slammed shut with polite but firm apologies, each one a fresh stab of betrayal. "We value integrity, Ms. Vance," they'd say, their voices echoing the public condemnation that had become her constant companion. Elara stared at the pile of overdue bills, the for sale sign on her grandmother's antique brooch, a stark reminder of her dwindling savings. On the flickering screen, Senator Thorne, her former boss, smiled confidently, casually dismissing the unfortunate incident. Unfortunate for her, certainly. In the musty confines of Elias Thorne's storage unit, Elara searched for anything of value, not monetary, but meaningful. Her late mentor, Senator Thorne's estranged brother, had always been her compass in the chaotic world of D.C., a voice of reason she desperately missed. Now, sifting through his archives, a wave of melancholy washed over her. Tucked beneath stacks of dusty policy papers, she found it. A leather-bound journal, its pages filled with Elias's elegant script, and beneath that, a heavy, unassuming metal box, locked tight. A faint whisper of curiosity stirred within her, a feeling she hadn't known in weeks. Back in her silent apartment, guided by a cryptic cipher Elara found sketched in Elias's journal, she finally unlocked the box. Inside lay a treasure trove of faded blueprints, intricate schematics, and legal documents detailing obscure but startlingly innovative patents. Elias's journal entries, interleaved amongst the papers, spoke of his disillusionment with a system corrupted by greed, his fervent belief that technology should uplift humanity, not just profit the powerful. "Ethical innovation," he'd scrawled, "is the only true path forward." A seed of something new began to sprout in Elara's heart. Days blurred into nights as Elara dove deep, confirming the patents' staggering value. These weren't just inventions, they were game-changers, deliberately buried. The shadowy corporate political syndicate, secretly helmed by none other than Senator Thorne, had suppressed them all. Then, a news report flashed across her screen. Senator Thorne, confidently pushing policies that would directly benefit the very industries Elias's patents would disrupt ethically. The man who had ruined her life was also holding the world's progress hostage. The stakes, Elara realized, were far greater than just her career. Elara Vance sat in the quiet hum of a downtown cafe, the cold coffee in her mug doing little to soothe the turmoil in her mind. Elias's journal lay open beside her, its pages filled with his elegant script, detailing not just technical brilliance, but a profound philosophical commitment to technology serving humanity. She clutched the heavy folder of patent documents, a fortune in her hands. She could sell them, disappear, rebuild her life far from the political vultures of DCA quick, clean exit. But then, the syndicate would simply acquire them, bury them again, and Elias's vision, his life's work, would be extinguished forever. The thought felt like a betrayal, not just of Elias but of herself. The system had tried to destroy her, cast her out, but Elias had given her a weapon. A profound moment of clarity washed over her, cold and sharp as a winter wind. This wasn't about escape, this was about justice. This was about honoring a legacy. And to do that, she had to fight. Samstraju, Monkoleask, YouTube, asterisk. She had a choice. Get rich or get even. She chose something far more dangerous. YouTube hook, asterisk, asterisk. To fight a shadow, she needed a digital wizard. But could she trust him? Elara found Kale in a dimly lit office, a cavern of glowing monitors and tangled wires, late on a Tuesday night. The air hummed with the quiet whir of servers and the frantic click of a keyboard. Kale, a man whose brilliance was only surpassed by his disinterest in social niceties, barely looked up from the complex code scrolling across his screens. He was a ghost in the DC tech scene, a legend among those who knew where the real power truly lay. "You're Elias Thorne's protégé," he stated, his voice flat, his gaze finally flicking to her, sharp and assessing. "What do you want?" Elara laid Elias's journal on his desk, its pages falling open to a specific, coded entry. "Elias told me you were the only one who understood his true work," she began, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. He also hinted at a secret, a portfolio of patents he'd hidden from his brother. Patents that the syndicate now controls. Kale's skepticism was a palpable force, a wall of intellectual doubt. But as Elara painstakingly explained the cryptic clues in the journal, a flicker of something, curiosity, recognition, sparked in his eyes. He leaned forward, finally intrigued, a grudging agreement to investigate forming unspoken between them. YouTube hook. Asterisk. The truth was worse than she imagined, but now she wasn't alone. Days later, Kale's office pulsed with a new kind of energy. The skepticism had vanished, replaced by a furious, righteous anger. "It's all here, Elara," he said, gesturing to a screen filled with complex data visualizations. "The patents are real, groundbreaking, worth billions. And the suppression? It's a digital ghost story. Firewalls, shell companies, legal maneuvers designed to keep them buried indefinitely." He spun a holographic display, showing a web of corporate espionage and digital sabotage, all leading back to the shadowy syndicate. This isn't just about money. This is about control. About stifling innovation that threatens their bottom line, even if it could change the world for the better. Kale slammed his fist on the desk, a rare display of emotion. "Elias knew. He warned me about them, but I never imagined the depth of their rot." Elara felt a grim confirmation settle in her gut. Her suspicions, her anger were justified. This wasn't just a personal vendetta, it was a battle for the soul of progress. Kale looked at her, his eyes blazing with a newfound resolve. "What do we do?" he asked, not as a question of doubt, but of shared purpose. Elara met his gaze, a silent pact forged between them. YouTube hook. Asterisk. They weren't just building a business, they were building a weapon. "We don't just sell the patents, Kale," Elara explained, standing before a blank whiteboard in a nondescript rented office space. "We use them as capital. We build a firm, an ethical lobbying firm." Kale raised an eyebrow, a hint of his old skepticism returning. "Ethical lobbying? In D.C.? That's an oxymoron." Elara smiled, a flicker of her old political fire in her eyes. "Exactly. Our mission will be transparency, public good, and responsible technological innovation. We won't just counter the syndicate's influence, we'll expose their methods by showing a better way." She sketched out a diagram, linking patents to policy proposals, to public benefit. "It'll be dangerous, Kale. We'll be operating in a system designed to crush dissent, built by the very people we're fighting." He nodded, his fingers already tracing hypothetical data flows on his imaginary keyboard. "So, we're building a weapon," he clarified, a slow grin spreading across his face. "A weapon disguised as a business." Elara's gaze hardened, the blueprint for rebellion forming in her mind. YouTube. Asterisk. Their first move wasn't just a challenge, it was a declaration of war. Days later, Elara's modest office was littered with legislative drafts and news clippings. "Senator Thorne is pushing this bill hard," she said, pointing to a document on her screen. "The Digital Security Act sounds noble, right? But buried in the fine print are clauses that would effectively grant syndicate-controlled corporations unprecedented access to public data, while stifling any open-source, ethical alternatives. Elias's data privacy patents directly contradict its core tenets." Kale scrolled through the bill's digital footnotes. "It's a classic Thorne move, cloak greed and patriotism." Elara nodded, her eyes narrowed. "This is our opening. Our chance to demonstrate Elias Innovations isn't just a threat to their secrets, but to their legislative power. We undermine this bill, not by outright opposition, but by exposing its true intent through the lens of ethical innovation. We show the world what's really at stake, using Elias's own words, his own designs, against them." Their first target was locked. YouTube hook. Asterisk. The shadows were stirring. They knew she was back. Elara and Kale moved like phantoms through the labyrinthine halls of Capitol Hill. They weren't making grand pronouncements, but planting seeds. Discreet meetings with junior aides, sympathetic lawmakers, and tech policy wonks. Elara, leveraging her past experience, presented data from Elias's patents, showing how ethical, open-source alternatives could better achieve the bill's stated goals without compromising privacy or innovation. Her arguments, calm and data-driven, began to resonate. Whispers followed them. Questions about Senator Thorne's bill, subtle delays in committee, small victories, but enough to cause ripples. As Elara left a meeting, she caught a glimpse of a familiar face, one of Senator Thorne's senior operatives, melting into the crowd. Their eyes met for a fleeting second, a cold recognition. The shadows were stirring. They knew she was back, and her presence was no longer a ghost but a growing threat. YouTube hook. Asterisk. He thought he could scare her into submission. He was wrong. The fluorescent lights of the deserted parking garage hummed, casting long, distorted shadows as Elara walked to her car. A sleek black sedan pulled up, blocking her path. The window slid down, revealing Senator Thorne, his face a mask of practiced concern. "Elara, my dear, still meddling in affairs beyond your grasp?" His voice was smooth, dripping with false warmth, but his eyes held a predatory glint. "I heard you're making a nuisance of yourself on the Hill. A shame, after everything." He paused, letting the implication hang heavy in the stale air. "Some people never learn, do they? Some mistakes. They just keep repeating." He smiled, a chilling, calculated gesture. "Washington is a brutal city, Elara. It chews up and spits out those who don't understand its rules. You saw that firsthand, didn't you? Don't make me remind you again." Elara felt a tremor of fear, a primal instinct to shrink away. But then Elias's words echoed in her mind. Asterisk. True power isn't in control, Elara, but in conviction. Asterisk. She met Thorne's gaze, her voice steady. "I understand the rules, Senator. I just don't play by yours anymore." The smile vanished from his face, replaced by a flicker of genuine malice. He drove away, leaving Elara shaken, but her resolve hardened like steel. "Hing wo blix leptecumric, loe krigum soic ric ceres, there asterisk. They knew the risks, they knew the enemy, and they were ready to fight. Back in their makeshift office, the late-night quiet was broken only by the rhythmic hum of Kale's servers. Elara recounted her chilling encounter with Senator Thorne, the veiled threats, the cold menace. Kale listened, his face grim. "He's rattled," he observed, "which means we're doing something right. But it also means he's going to escalate." Elara nodded, a tremor running through her, but her jaw was set. "He thinks he can intimidate me. He thinks I'll run." She looked at Kale, a shared understanding passing between them. "We knew this wouldn't be easy." Elias knew. This is exactly what he prepared for. They stood side by side, two unlikely allies against a behemoth of corruption. "So, what do we call ourselves?" Kale asked, a glint of defiance in his eye. Elara looked at the blank whiteboard, then back at the folder containing Elias's life's work. "Elias Innovations," she declared, the name a promise, a challenge, a testament. A new logo, a stylized EI, interwoven with a circuit pattern, appeared on Kale's screen, sharp and bright. The gauntlet had been thrown. The battle was officially on. The first domino fell. But the syndicate wouldn't fall so easily. Elara Vance stood at the podium in a small, rented press conference room, the modest setting a stark contrast to the grand halls of power she once navigated. Beside her, Kale, looking surprisingly composed for a man who usually preferred the glow of multiple monitors to the glare of camera flashes, offered a quiet nod of encouragement. Elara's voice, clear and steady, filled the room as she presented complex data, meticulously extracted from Elias's suppressed patents. She exposed the critical flaws in Senator Thorne's proposed environmental bill, demonstrating how it would stifle genuine innovation and disproportionately harm vulnerable communities, all while benefiting a select few corporate interests. "The technology exists today," quote, Elara asserted, displaying a graphic of Elias's clean energy schematics, "to achieve these goals more effectively and ethically. This bill, as it stands, is not about progress. It's about protection. Protection of outdated, environmentally damaging industries." Anya Sharma, a sharp-eyed journalist known for her relentless pursuit of truth, scribbled furiously in her notebook, her gaze fixed on Elara. She'd heard the whispers about Elara Vance's public disgrace, but the woman before her radiated an undeniable, quiet power. Elara's compelling arguments, backed by Cale's irrefutable data, resonated beyond the small room. Within days, the momentum shifted. Senator Thorne's bill, once considered a shoo-in, was unexpectedly delayed in committee. A small victory, perhaps, but a tremor in the carefully constructed facade of power. News headlines flashed. Elias Innovations questions Thorne bill. New ethical lobbying firm challenges status quo. When a journalist smells a rat, a whole conspiracy is about to unravel. Anya Sharma sat in her bustling newsroom, the cacophony of breaking stories a familiar backdrop. But her focus was singular: Elara Vance. She replayed clips of Elara's press conference, scrutinizing every word, every gesture. Elara's quiet conviction, the meticulous detail in her presentation. It didn't fit the narrative of a disgraced, reckless aide. Anya's journalistic instinct, honed over years of exposing political hypocrisy, screamed that there was a deeper story here, a carefully orchestrated lie. She called Elara, expecting resistance, a carefully crafted deflection. Instead, Elara was calm, measured. "Ms. Sharma." Elara's voice was warm, yet guarded. "I appreciate your interest." "Elara," Anya cut in, "I've been in this business a long time. I know a scapegoat when I see one. What happened to you, it wasn't just a mistake, was it? And this, Elias Innovations, it feels like more than just a lobbying firm." Elara paused, a beat of silence stretching between them. "What do you think it is, Anya?" she finally asked, using the journalist's first name, a subtle invitation. Elara didn't reveal everything, not yet, but she dropped subtle hints. A mention of Elias Thorne's true work, a suggestion to look into certain obscure corporate filings, a question about the rapid rise of Senator Thorne's influence. Anya, fueled by the breadcrumbs, felt the web of connections begin to form in her mind, a blurred image of Senator Thorne on her screen serving as a chilling reminder of the man at its center. They tried to bury her again, but this time she had an army. The syndicate's response was swift and brutal. Within days, Elara's office at Elias Innovations was awash in a deluge of negative headlines and social media attacks. Old, discredited stories of her past scandal resurfaced, twisted, and amplified. Anonymous accounts flooded every platform, accusing Elias Innovations of being a shadowy front for foreign interests, a thinly veiled attempt to destabilize American policy. The venom was palpable, designed to crush her credibility and silence her new firm before it could truly take root. Elara and Cale watched the screens, a grim tableau of digital warfare. "They're fighting dirty," Elara said, her jaw clenched, her eyes burning with a renewed cold anger. "Just like I knew they would." Cale, his fingers flying across his keyboard, quickly traced the digital footprints. "Shell companies, bot networks, dark money ad buys," he rattled off, his voice tight with frustration. "All linked back to a network that screams Thorne. They're trying to drown us in noise, to make sure no one hears the truth." But the attack, instead of breaking Elara, only hardened her resolve. This was proof that they were hurting the syndicate, proof that Elias Innovations was a threat. She looked at Cale, a silent understanding passing between them. They had won a small battle, and now the real war was beginning. Elara knew they had to be prepared for anything. She didn't fight back with lies. She fought back with the truth. Elara Vance sat poised on a national news program set, the bright lights illuminating her composed face. The interviewer, a seasoned veteran, launched into the accusations, rehashing the scandal that had ended her political career, pressing her on the foreign influence claims against Elias Innovations. Elara listened patiently, her expression unwavering. "I understand why these questions are being asked," Elara began, her voice calm, devoid of defensiveness. "And yes, I made mistakes. I allowed myself to be a scapegoat in a system that often prioritizes power over principle." The admission, delivered with quiet dignity, disarmed the interviewer, and undoubtedly many viewers. But that experience taught me a profound lesson: that true innovation, true progress, cannot flourish in the shadows. Elias Innovations was founded on the principle of transparency, on leveraging groundbreaking technology not for personal gain, but for public good. She then pivoted, eloquently detailing the firm's mission, inviting scrutiny and challenging the public to look past the smears and examine the data. Her honesty resonated. The phone lines lit up. Social media erupted with support. The narrative began to shift. Somewhere, in his opulent office, Senator Thorne watched the interview, his face a mask of thinly veiled fury. Elara had just turned his weapon against him. The journalist and the aide, an unlikely alliance against an unstoppable enemy. Elara met Anya Sharma in a quiet corner of the public library, the hushed atmosphere a welcome change from the relentless media storm. Anya, stacks of research papers piled beside her, slid a folder across the table. "You were right," she said, her voice low with a mix of awe and anger. "The rabbit hole goes deeper than I imagined." Her preliminary findings were damning: shell corporations, untraceable donations, legislative loopholes specifically crafted to benefit Thorne's cronies. Anya had found the threads connecting the political scandal Elara took the fall for, directly back to the syndicate's financial interests. Elara, seeing the integrity and fierce determination in Anya's eyes, knew it was time to share more. Elias believed technology should serve humanity, not control it, she confided, revealing more about her mentor's true vision and the full extent of the patents, not just their value, but their potential for societal good. He was trying to build a better world, and they silenced him for it. Anya's eyes widened, the full scope of the conspiracy unfurling before her. "This isn't just a story, Elara. This is a war." "And we're on the same side," Elara replied, a shared look of fierce determination solidifying their alliance. Anya would provide the public platform, Elara the verified, irrefutable information. Their combined forces were about to become a formidable, undeniable threat. They tried to hack her dreams. They underestimated her digital guardian. The Elias Innovations office, usually a hive of quiet industry, became a battlefield late one night. Kale, hunched over his glowing monitors, suddenly swore. "They're in," he gritted out, his face illuminated by rapidly flashing red alerts. "Sophisticated. Aimed at the patent core. They want to steal the data, discredit the entire portfolio." Elara rushed to his side, her heart pounding. The syndicate wasn't just playing politics. They were trying to cripple Elias Innovations at its very heart. Kale's fingers flew across his keyboard, a blur of motion as he erected firewalls, rerouted data, and launched countermeasures. "Elara, I need you to pull the manual backups now, knock-knock," he commanded, his voice tight with urgency. She moved with practiced efficiency, gathering the physical drives, a non-technical but critical role. The air crackled with tension, the whir of servers a frantic hum. Hours blurred into a tense standoff. Finally, Kale leaned back, exhaling slowly. "They're out! Repelled!" He wiped a bead of sweat from his brow. "But they're not playing games anymore." This was a full-scale assault. Elara nodded, handing him a fresh cup of coffee. The attack had been terrifying, but it had also proven their resilience. They had survived, and they were ready for the next escalation. Every attack they launched, she used to make them stronger. The syndicate, reeling from the public backlash against Thorne's initial bill, tried a new tactic. They pushed through a series of legislative amendments designed to devalue Elias's patents, to make them commercially unviable. It was a subtle, insidious move, meant to cut off Elias Innovations' lifeblood. But Elara and Kale were ready. In a virtual meeting room, broadcast live, Elara coolly dismantled the syndicate's arguments. "These amendments are not about fair competition," she stated. "They are about suppressing innovation that threatens entrenched interests." Kale, with a few clicks, then publicly released carefully selected portions of Elias's patent portfolio, alongside detailed analyses demonstrating their immense public benefit and the syndicate's deliberate efforts to obscure them. He showed how these unviable technologies could solve critical environmental and data privacy issues. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Public outcry forced senators to reconsider. The amendments were defeated, a crushing legislative defeat for Senator Thorne and his allies. The syndicate had tried to strangle Elias Innovations, but Elara had turned their attack into a platform, showcasing the very power they sought to suppress. Senator Thorne, watching the news from his office, slammed his fist on his desk, his face a mask of bitter frustration. Elara was not just surviving, she was thriving, and with every strategic move, she was gaining momentum. When a predator is cornered, they become truly dangerous. Senator Thorne's opulent private office was usually a sanctuary of controlled power. Tonight, it was a crucible of rage. He paced like a caged tiger, his face contorted with fury as he addressed his inner circle of shadowy syndicate members. "Another defeat," he hissed, his voice dangerously low. "Another setback, because of her, Elara Vance, the little aide I threw out like trash." His eyes, cold and sharp, darted between his subordinates. "She's not just an annoyance anymore. She's a threat. She's exposing our network, piece by piece." They discussed more aggressive tactics. "We initiate direct legal challenges to her patent ownership," one lawyer suggested, his voice tentative. "Claim illegal acquisition." Another proposed planting a mole within Elias Innovations, someone to steal their strategies, to discredit them from within. Thorne listened, his anger morphing into a chilling, calculated ruthlessness. "I want her neutralized," he declared, his voice cutting through the tense silence. "By any means necessary. Before she exposes everything. Before she brings down this entire operation." A chilling cut, then, to a new, unknown character. Observing Elara's office from a distance, a cold, predatory glint in their eyes. The game had just turned deadly. They sent a spy, she sent them a trap. Cale's face was a map of worried lines, illuminated by the frantic glow of his multi-monitor setup. "Elara, there's an anomaly. Not an external attack this time. It's internal." His voice, usually calm and analytical, held a tremor of unease. Elara's heart quickened. She walked over, peering at the rapidly scrolling code. Subtle data discrepancies. Unusual access patterns to Elias's less sensitive patent drafts. The syndicate wasn't just attacking from the outside. They were trying to burrow within. "A mole," Elara breathed, the word tasting like ash. Senator Thorne wasn't just desperate. He was willing to contaminate their very sanctuary. But then, a flicker of that familiar strategic fire ignited in Elara's eyes. A trap. A chance to turn their insidious game against them. "Cale," she said, her voice steadying, "we feed them exactly what they want. But it won't be the truth." The truth was finally out. And it was about to burn their empire down. Late into the night, Anya Sharma sat amidst a hurricane of documents and glowing screens in her newsroom. Coffee cups littered her desk, but she felt no fatigue, only a surging electric current of adrenaline. Following Elara's carefully placed hints, Anya had dug deeper than anyone dared. She'd peeled back layers of shell corporations, traced illicit offshore accounts, and connected them directly to Senator Thorne. A paper trail, undeniable and damning, showed his personal hand in suppressing Elias's groundbreaking patents, not just for corporate gain, but for outright corruption. It was definitive proof, explosive enough to shatter Thorne's carefully constructed empire and trigger a federal investigation that would rock Washington, D.C. to its core. Anya stared at the screen, a triumphant, yet fearful, smile spreading across her face. The weight of the truth was immense, but she knew, with chilling certainty, that it was time for the world to see it. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, a frantic call going out to Elara. The world watched as a corrupt empire began to crumble. The national news broadcast began with Anya Sharma's serious, unwavering gaze. Her voice, calm but powerful, filled living rooms across the country. "Tonight, we expose the truth behind one of Washington's most respected figures, Senator Thorne." Compelling graphics flashed across the screen, a digital web illustrating the syndicate's insidious network of corruption, the deliberate suppression of Elias Thorne's ethical patents, and the systemic manipulation of policy for personal gain. Elara watched from her office, the TV screen a window into the reckoning she had fought so hard to unleash. A mix of profound vindication and a gnawing apprehension swirled within her. Every detail Anya presented was a chisel blow against the monolithic edifice of Thorne's power. The report ended, but the silence was short-lived. Public outrage erupted like a volcano, protests forming, news channels ablaze, government officials scrambling. The storm had broken. Just when she thought she'd won, they pulled their darkest trick. In a chaotic, opulent crisis room, Senator Thorne paced like a caged predator. His face, usually composed, was contorted in a mask of enraged desperation. "This is impossible." "That journalist is lying," he roared, slamming his fist onto a polished mahogany table. His lawyers, a cynical, sharp-suited assembly, worked frantically. "Senator, the evidence is compelling. We need a counter-narrative now." Thorne's eyes, cold and calculating, fixed on one of them. "Frame her. Frame Elara Vance. Claim she illegally obtained Elias's patents, manipulated Cale, and the journalist. Turn her into the criminal." It was a desperate, malicious play. A scorched-earth tactic designed to discredit the truth by destroying its messenger. Before Elara could even process the full impact of Anya's exposé, a federal warrant was quietly issued for her arrest, accusing her of corporate espionage and theft of intellectual property. The sirens, distant at first, grew louder, wailing an ominous song towards Elias Innovations' unsuspecting office. They thought they'd silenced her. They had no idea what she'd already unleashed. The flashing blue and red lights painted Elara's office in stark, unsettling hues. Uniformed officers, grim-faced, moved with professional efficiency. "Elara Vance, you're under arrest." The words hung heavy in the air, but Elara remained outwardly calm, her composure an unbreakable shield. She had anticipated this, knowing Thorne would never go down without a fight, that he would try to drag her down with him. As the cold steel of handcuffs clicked around her wrists, her eyes met Cale's across the room. She gave him a subtle, almost imperceptible nod, a cryptic instruction that spoke volumes to their shared understanding. "Activate Protocol Phoenix, Cale," she whispered, her voice barely audible but firm. It was their prearranged, dead man's switch, a carefully curated data release, designed to unleash even more incriminating evidence if Elara was silenced or disappeared. Cale, his face a mixture of fear and fierce determination, nodded back. As Elara was led away, the last thing she saw was Cale's fingers flying across his keyboard, a digital ghost in the machine, unleashing the next wave of their reckoning. This wasn't just a trial, it was a war for the future. The courtroom hummed with a tense, anticipatory energy. Elara, now a defendant, sat beside her legal counsel, her spine straight, her gaze unwavering. Across the aisle, Senator Thorne sat with a smug, self-assured air, his lawyers attempting to paint Elara as nothing more than a disgruntled, manipulative aide who had stolen her late mentor's work. This wasn't just about patent ownership. It was a proxy battle for Elara's freedom, her reputation, and the very legitimacy of Elias Innovations. Cale, calm and precise, took the stand as an expert witness, meticulously presenting technical data and digital forensics proving Elias's original ownership and the syndicate's calculated suppression. Anya Sharma's recent exposé, while not directly part of the patent theft charges, cast a long, dark shadow over Thorne's credibility, a constant, unspoken accusation in the air. Elara felt the immense pressure, the weight of everything they had fought for hanging in the balance, but she refused to break. This was the system that had tried to crush her, and she would meet it head-on. Just when all hope seemed lost, a ghost from their past delivered the final blow. The courtroom held its breath as a new figure was called to the stand. A former, disillusioned member of Thorne's syndicate, swayed by Anya's relentless reporting and Elara's unwavering ethical stand, had chosen to come forward. His testimony, nervous but firm, began to unravel Thorne's entire defense. He provided internal documents, encrypted communications, and even audio recordings that directly contradicted Thorne's claims. The witness detailed how Thorne had orchestrated Elara's scapegoating, how he'd personally overseen the suppression of Elias's patents, and the malicious intent behind every move. Senator Thorne's smugness evaporated, replaced by a furious, desperate rage as his lawyers launched into a flurry of objections. But the judge, her expression stern and unyielding, silenced them all. This was the pivot Elara had prayed for, a turning point that shifted the entire battle. As the witness finished, the gravity of his words hung in the air, a definitive, irrefutable truth that cut through Thorne's web of lies. Elara felt tears prick her eyes, not of sorrow, but of profound, overwhelming relief and the dawning light of triumph. The judge's voice cut through the courtroom, clear and unwavering. Based on the irrefutable evidence presented, particularly the testimony of Mr. Silas Croft and the corroborating digital records, This court finds in favor of Ms. Elara Vance. The charges of corporate espionage and theft of intellectual property are hereby dismissed. Furthermore, the ownership of Elias Thorne's patent portfolio is legally vested in Ms. Vance. A collective gasp, then a ripple of murmurs, spread through the room. Elara felt a wave of profound relief wash over her, her knees threatening to buckle. She had done it. She had truly done it. "Senator Thorne," Judge Ramirez continued, her voice now like steel, "your actions constitute a blatant abuse of power, corruption, and a deliberate suppression of innovation for personal gain. You are remanded into federal custody immediately, pending charges of fraud, bribery, and obstruction of justice." Senator Thorne, his face a mask of furious disbelief, was swiftly escorted away by bailiffs, his once impeccable suit now seeming to sag under the weight of his downfall. As he passed, his eyes, burning with a cold, impotent rage, met Elara's. She didn't flinch. Cale was beside her in an instant, his hand on her shoulder, his usually stoic face beaming. Anya, ever the journalist, had tears in her eyes as she squeezed Elara's arm. "You did it, Elara," Cale whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Elara looked at her allies, her chosen family in this fight. The sheer, exhilarating triumph of the moment hung in the air, a silent promise that justice, however long delayed, would always find its way. The corrupt politician fell. The exiled Aide rose. The news of Senator Thorne's arrest sent shockwaves through Washington, D.C., and indeed across the nation. What started as one man's downfall quickly became an empire's collapse. Federal investigations, propelled by Anya's relentless reporting and the unassailable evidence Elara and Cale had meticulously gathered, began to unravel the vast, shadowy syndicate Thorne had commanded. Daily news tickers scrolled with names of once untouchable figures now exposed and brought to justice. Corrupt lobbyists, corporate executives, even a few minor politicians, all caught in the widening net. At Elias Innovations, the atmosphere crackled with a different kind of energy. The small, unassuming office that had once been a clandestine war room was now a bustling hub of activity. The firm's logo, a stylized E, intertwined with a circuit board, was emblazoned on new signage. Public support poured in, and ethical talent, drawn by their integrity and success, eagerly sought to join their ranks. "It's like the floodgates opened," Cale said, leaning back in his chair, a rare, relaxed smile on his face as he watched new hires buzzing about. "People are tired of the shadows, Elara. They want the light Elias promised." Elara nodded, a profound sense of satisfaction settling in her chest. One man's downfall led to an empire's collapse. 6 months later, Elara stood at a podium in the gleaming new wing of the Georgetown University Research Lab. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating a bronze plaque that read, "The Elias Thorne Foundation for Ethical Innovation." The room was filled with academics, young scientists, and the burgeoning team from Elias Innovations. Cale and Anya sat in the front row, their faces alight with quiet pride. When Elias Thorne first envisioned these patents, Elara began, her voice clear and resonant, he wasn't dreaming of personal wealth or corporate dominance. He was dreaming of a better world. A world where technology served humanity, not exploited it. A world where innovation was a force for good, not a tool for greed. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the hopeful faces in the audience. His vision was buried by the very forces he sought to counter. Suppressed, hidden, almost lost to history. A lump formed in Elara's throat as she remembered Elias's cryptic journal, the dust motes dancing in the storage unit. But Elias left us a map, a legacy of light, hidden in the dark. And today, with the wealth generated from those very patents, we honor that legacy. The Elias Thorne Foundation will fund research, provide scholarships, and champion ethical technology that truly benefits all of us. Cale and Anya exchanged a knowing look, a shared acknowledgement of the journey that had brought them here. His vision was buried by greed. She brought it back to life. Elara Vance, the exiled Aide, was gone. In her place stood Elara Vance, CEO of Elias Innovations, a name now synonymous with integrity and transformative advocacy. Her spacious, modern office, overlooking the bustling D.C. skyline, was a testament to her journey. She confidently chaired meetings, her directives precise, her vision unwavering. Policymakers now sought her counsel, not just for the technical expertise of Elias's patents, but for the ethical framework her firm championed. She advised on data privacy legislation, ensuring protections for vulnerable citizens. She championed sustainable energy initiatives, leveraging Elias's forgotten schematics to push for cleaner, more efficient solutions. Elias Innovations was no longer just a firm. It was a movement, a respected and influential force, known for its integrity and data-driven advocacy. Elara often caught her reflection in the glass walls of her office, seeing not the broken woman who'd watched her career crumble in a back alley, but a leader. A woman who hadn't just survived the system, she had changed it. Her purpose was clear, her satisfaction profound. Late one afternoon, Cale ambled into Elara's office, a data report in hand. He started to explain the quarterly projections, but then paused, catching Elara's eye. The sunlight, softened by the late hour, cast a warm glow across the room. "Remember when I thought you were just a desperate woman with a wild conspiracy theory?" Cale mused, a wry smile playing on his lips. Elara chuckled, leaning back in her chair. "And I remember thinking you were a brilliant but hopelessly cynical hermit." Their shared laughter filled the comfortable silence. They had come so far, from hushed meetings in Kylan's cluttered office, to leading a force that was genuinely changing the landscape of power. They acknowledged the risks they'd taken, the sleepless nights, the moments of fear and doubt. But they also recognized the profound impact they'd had. Their friendship, forged in the crucible of shared ideals and battles won, was an unbreakable bond. "We did good, Cale," Elara said softly, her gaze drifting to the photo of Elias on her desk. Cale nodded, a knowing smile shared between them. Some battles create enemies. Others forge unbreakable bonds. Across town, in the bustling, prestigious newsroom of a major national outlet, Anya Sharma commanded her own space. Her office, larger and more prominent than before, was a testament to her groundbreaking investigative work. She was no longer just a journalist. She was a respected voice, a champion for truth. On her large monitor, Elara Vance's face appeared, live on a video call. "The public awareness campaign for the Digital Ethics Act is gaining significant traction, Elara," Anya reported, her voice sharp and confident. "My team is seeing unprecedented engagement. Your data on the societal impact of unchecked AI is truly making a difference." Elara smiled. "And your ability to translate complex ethical dilemmas into compelling narratives, Anya, is what makes that data resonate." Their partnership remained a powerful force for truth and accountability. Anya continued to expose corruption, now with the full backing of a major media organization, and Elara continued to provide the verifiable information and ethical framework. The truth had found its champion, and she wasn't stopping. The federal courtroom was packed, but a hush fell as Senator Thorne, his face drawn and ashen, stood before Judge Ramirez. The once immaculate suit was rumpled, his demeanor stripped of its former swagger. The judge's voice, devoid of emotion, delivered the verdict that would shatter his world. "For the charges of federal corruption, obstruction of justice, and patent suppression, Senator Thorne, this court sentences you to 25 years in federal prison." Elara sat in the gallery, a quiet observer. There was no joy in her heart, no burning desire for vengeance, only a profound sense of justice being served. She watched as Thorne's shoulders slumped, his political career and carefully constructed reputation utterly destroyed. He was no longer the menacing figure who had cornered her in a dark parking garage. He was just a man, stripped bare by his own greed. As the bailiffs led him away, a final, bitter glance flickered in Elara's direction. But it held no power. She had come for closure, and she had found it. He thought he was above the law. He was wrong. On a bright, sunny morning, Elara stood alone before a simple headstone in a quiet cemetery. Elias Thorne, it read, followed by the dates of his life. She placed a single, vibrant yellow rose on the cool marble, a color that spoke of hope and new beginnings. "Elias," she whispered, the gentle breeze rustling the leaves above, "your vision lives on. Your patents are changing the world, just as you wanted. Your name is a beacon of ethical innovation, not a shadow of corruption." She closed her eyes, remembering his kind smile, his quiet dedication. He had trusted her, even in death, to carry his torch. And she had. A profound sense of peace settled over her, a calm strength that had been hard-won. The weight of the past, of the betrayal and the fight, felt lighter now. The man who saved her even in death finally found his peace. In a vibrant, state-of-the-art classroom at Georgetown, funded by the Elias Thorne Foundation, Elara Vance mentored a diverse group of bright-eyed students. They huddled over advanced simulations, their screens displaying complex ethical algorithms and sustainable design schematics. "Remember," Elara advised, her voice warm but firm, "true innovation isn't just about what you can build, but what you should build. Think about the impact, the ripple effect on communities, on the planet." These students, the next generation of innovators, were working on projects directly inspired by Elias's original patents, now made publicly available and accessible through the foundation. A young woman excitedly showed Elara a prototype for a decentralized energy grid. A quiet young man demonstrated an AI designed to detect and flag online misinformation. Elara saw the tangible manifestation of Elias's in her own efforts, a true legacy taking root. Her fight didn't just change the present, it shaped the future. Elara Vance stood on a global stage, delivering a powerful keynote address at an international summit on ethical technology and governance. The vast hall, filled with delegates from around the world, listened intently as she spoke of the importance of transparency, accountability, and purpose-driven innovation. Elias Innovations, once a fledgling firm born of desperation, had expanded its reach, advocating for policies that benefited communities worldwide. In the audience, Kale, looking far more comfortable in a tailored suit than his old hoodies, exchanged a proud glance with Anya, who was already live tweeting Elara's most impactful quotes. They had come so far from that dimly lit office, from the first spark of rebellion. Elara's voice, once silenced by systemic injustice, now echoed globally, a testament to the enduring power of ethical leadership. "Our responsibility," Elara concluded, her gaze sweeping across the diverse faces, "is not just to innovate, but to elevate. To ensure that the future we build is equitable, sustainable, and truly human-centered." From an alley in D.C. to the world stage, her voice now echoed globally. Back in her apartment, now a comfortable, thoughtfully appointed home, Elara sat quietly in her living room. The city lights twinkled outside her window, a familiar, comforting sight. On her desk, a framed photo of Elias Thorne smiled back at her, a silent reminder of the journey. She traced the lines of his face, remembering the man who had inadvertently set her on this path. The betrayal, the desperate fight for survival, the triumphs that followed, it all played out in her mind, but the raw edges of anger and fear had softened, replaced by a profound sense of peace. She realized that true power wasn't about vengeance, or even just about dismantling a corrupt system. It was about using one's strength, one's mind, and one's heart to build a better world. It was about honoring Elias's true spirit, his belief in a brighter, more ethical future. A quiet, knowing smile touched her lips. She hadn't just won a war, she had found her purpose. The sun rose over Washington, D.C., painting the sky in hues of gold and rose, a silent promise of a new day. Elara Vance stood at her window, looking out at the Capitol building, no longer a symbol of her defeat, but a landscape she had fought to reshape. Her story began with betrayal, with a career stolen and a reputation shattered. But it didn't end there. It ended with a legacy of light, built on the unwavering principles of an ethical innovator. Elias Thorne's vision, once buried, now flourished, impacting lives and policies globally. Elara's journey proved that while greed and unchecked power would always exist, courage, ethics, and determination could always triumph. Her fight didn't just expose a syndicate, it inspired a generation. Her legacy isn't just in patents or policies, but in the unwavering belief she instills in others, that one person's courage can change the world. Her story began with betrayal, but ended with a legacy that will inspire generations. What will your story be?